Welcome, listeners and subscribers, to Star Trek The Essentials. This podcast will be taking you through what we think are the essential viewing to get an encompassing understanding of what made Star Trek the international pop culture icon it has become today. Today's episode, The Arena.
We are the Metrons. You are one of two crafts which have come into our space on a mission of violence. This is not permissible. Yet we have analyzed you and have learned that your violent tendencies are inherent. So be it. We will control them. We will resolve your conflict in the way most suited to your limited mentalities. Captain James Kirk.
This is Kirk.
We have prepared a planet with a suitable atmosphere. You will be taken there, as will the captain of the Gorn ship which you have been pursuing. There you will settle your dispute.
I don't understand.
You will be provided with a recording translating device, in hopes that a chronicle of this contest will serve to dissuade others of your kind from entering our system. But you will not be permitted to communicate with your ship. You will each be totally alone.
What makes you think you can interfere?
It is you who are interfering. We are simply putting a stop to it. The place we have prepared for you contains sufficient elements for either of you to construct weapons lethal enough to destroy the other, which seems to be your intention. The winner of the contest will be permitted to go his way unharmed. The loser, along with his ship, shall be destroyed in the interests of peace. The contest will be one of ingenuity against ingenuity, brute strength against brute strength. The results will be final. There will be no discussion. It is done.
He's gone.
Welcome, listeners and subscribers, to our newest episode of our podcast, Star Trek The Essentials. Today we'll be talking about The Arena. Brent Allen, my co-host, and I agree that this is possibly one of the worst TOS, the original series, episodes out there. But since the Gorn is in it, it has to be on this list. Is that the only reason this made this list first? Hey, Brent.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Glad to be back with you guys. It's been a whirlwind here over this last week or so, however long it's been trying to get to record this episode. But yeah, I mean, you nailed it. This is an essential episode simply because of the Gorn. The Gorn, it's so iconic to the series. The Gorn is referenced in so many other pop culture places that if you're trying to get an overview of what Star Trek is like and what Star Trek is all about, you've got to know what the Gorn are. You've got to, or what the Gorn is, I guess. We only see one of them. But I mean, honestly, that's it. There's a couple of other little tidbits here and there throughout the episode, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But yeah, this one's basically the Gorn, not because it's a particularly fantastic episode. In fact, it's not. But yeah, it's the Gorn.
It's the Gorn. All right, so to quickly recap, if you don't remember this episode, one, you have probably don't watch the original series or an extreme casual Star Trek fan, because he's up there, especially in the original series. Like, there, you have like the iconic bad guys like the Romulans, the Borgs, the Klingons. But as far as the original series and just a one-off bad guy, the Gorn, he's it. Like you said, it pops up everywhere, through pop culture. So let's take you through it. Once again, an outpost gets destroyed. And once again, this Enterprise gets lured down.
Wait, didn't we see this last week? Wasn't this the episode we watched?
2 weeks ago. The cage, yeah. So once again, they get fake messages, and they beam down to the surface, and as soon as they get there, The outpost is destroyed. They figure out that there's still some baddies over there in the hills, and after a red shirt dies, obviously, they sort of fight their way out with a grenade launcher of all things, and eventually get beamed back up to the Enterprise. But now the Gorn ship, which we don't know is the Gorn ship, the enemy ship, is out there, and Kirk is out for blood. He feels like this is an invasion. It was just a malicious attack on women and children, and if he doesn't show this enemy, who they don't know who it is yet, that the strength of Starfleet, they're going to come back for an invasion. So Kirk starts chasing this guy down. It's a warp race, gets to warp, they're at warp 5. Kirk goes to warp 6. The Gorn ship goes to warp 6. 7, now all of a sudden stress thing. This is one of the only times I've ever heard this, the Enterprise is going to blow up because of warp 7. But yeah, it was, I guess it was supposed to be a tension builder. But, so now they're going warp 7, and all of a sudden, they start getting scanned from this nearby solar system.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about it, and then they're looking at the Gorn ship and which way the Gorn ship's going, and they're still getting scanned, and it's sort of intensifying, but it's harmless scans, so everything's fine. Then the Gorn ship all of a sudden just goes from warp 7 to 5 to 3 to dead in space. Kirk gets all excited. Here we go. We're going to blow them up. This is it. And right when they start to get in range of the Gorn ship, the Enterprise, drops from warp 7 to 5 to 3 to 2 to 1, and then they're dead in space. And they realize that this nearby solar system that was scanning them is now holding both these ships in place. And it's, on the monitor, the viewer screen, you get this psychedelic talking, rainbow-ish cube. What would you call that?
Communication
60 special effects at best.
19. Yes, that's part of why this episode is bad.
Yeah. So you have this voice of God type of feeling, and he says basically, we've scanned you guys, we've read your databases, you're both uncivilized races, and instead of destroying yourselves, because we can't allow this in our space, we're going to take the captain from each ship and throw him down on this planet that you can both survive from the atmosphere, and it's a battle to the death. It's Battle Royale. It's PUBG, one-on-one. It's Fortnite, one-on-one. So that's what they're going at it. I guess it'd be Fortnite because you got to build stuff. Much more Fortnite, one-on-one. You quickly find out that the Gorn, although slower than a three-toed sloth, is extremely strong. Kirk hits him from height in a distance, right in the chest with a boulder that looks to be the same weight as a medicine ball, and the Gorn just walks right through it, doesn't stagger him. And then the Gorn goes, "Oh, you want to throw rocks? All right." And he picks up a boulder about the size of a Volkswagen. That's not quite that big, but you get it. It's probably a 2-ton boulder. Picks it up over his head and throws it almost over Kirk's head. So yeah, bad. Yeah. Yeah.
I can throw styrofoam rocks too, Ren.
Yeah, you want to throw rocks, human? I'll show you throw rocks. This is how you throw rocks. So they go back and forth, and eventually Kirk starts to realize that there's all these mineral deposits and diamonds all over the surface. So he figures out how to make gunpowder. He takes some sulfuric carbonate, I think, some sulfur, finds some coal, uses diamonds as projectiles, sticks them in a bamboo tube, wraps some rope around it to sort of fortify the barrel so it doesn't explode, which it ends up doing anyway. Cuts a piece of his pants off, uses a flint, sparks it, shoots the homemade cannon at the Gorn. Gorn goes down, and when it's Kirk's chance to kill this thing, which basically, I guess we should say what it looks like, or I should say, it just looks, it's a lizard man, Mm-hmm. It's just a biped lizard man. To think of Godzilla with normal human arms and no tail. Kind of like that, dressed in a 1970s female figure skater outfit. That's what it is. It's a short one-piece skirt outfit.
It's interesting you say that, because this particular episode was filmed and made in the 60s, so what it makes me wonder is if those female ice skaters in the 70s stole
that.
pulled the Gorn style. It makes me wonder.
Oh.
I don't know. I didn't research that, but now I'm curious.
So now the Gorn's down and Kirk's about to kill him. He decides, no, I'm not going to do it. He's starting to figure out maybe that the Gorn, no matter how ugly and repulsive he may be, doesn't necessarily make him bad. He could feel like the outpost was an infringement on his territory, and he was just protecting himself and his people. So he says, I'm not going to do it. And then the Metrones, who were the people that, the nearby Sol system been holding the ships in place and have transported the two captains through this asteroid to duke it out, Fortnite style, appears, and it looks like, like a teenage boy, sort of a Greek god Apollo look in a shiny robe, and he's all sparkly like the Twilight, the vampires from Twilight. And basically he says, well, you know what, humans, there may be hope for you yet. We'll kill the Gorn if you want to. And Kirk, of course, says no. And he goes, well, maybe in a couple thousand years, us, the Metrones, and you, the humans, can get together and find some common ground. But for now, we'll send you on your way. And then it cuts back to the ship, and Kirk's there, and Sue looks down at the navigation charts, and they're, half a galaxy from where they were. And that's pretty much the end of the episode, Now, I have a fun fact, and then I have a question for you.
Okay.
The fun fact, which you probably know, so I hope I'm not stealing it from you, that the voice of the Gorn is played by the actor who played Lurch on the Addams Family.
Is it?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Once you know that and watch it and then listen to it, it's like it's almost identical. It's Lurch doing Lurch with S's.
Okay.
Like, accepted, you rang, and like it's almost
interesting. Okay.
It's sort of identical. But here's my thing to you: the Metrones. Oh, that young boy, by the way, was like 1,500 years old. I should say, teenage
looking
boy.
good.
Looking good. The Metrones. Do you think the Metrones could have been like the first carnation, or maybe we're skipping ahead to a different genre, or not genre, a different series, I guess. The Next Generation. Do you think the Metrones are sort of the evolution and what became the Q? Because they can hold, like, their power seems just about, they can do anything they want. They can hold spaceships still in outer space. They can, transport people anywhere they want to from any location, and they can zap any ship from one point in space to another point in space.
It's an interesting thought. I definitely know that there has been. I'm trying to remember exactly who it was. There is definitely theories in the fandom. It's never been talked about in canon. And the rule for Star Trek is it's got to be on screen. It can't be in a book. It's not something that one of the producers or writers said somewhere. It's actually got to be on screen in order for it to be considered canon. So it's never been confirmed canonically. But there's a lot of fan theories that there was it was something out of the original series that is basically that. And I'm trying to remember if it was the Metrons, that basically these guys go ahead and become the Q, later on. The difference, though, that I feel is if by the time we get to Next Generation is only about 80 years removed from the original series. So it's not that far. So if the Q were this in TOS and 80 of our years later they're now the Q, there's some sort of a jump in their evolution there,
and I
especially
think
for a timeless being.
Right. Yeah, I agree. From what they look like and sort of what the Q is in the Next Generation. I'm not saying that the Metrones are the Q. I'm just saying that they got the idea of Q from in Next Generation. They got it from the Metrones. It's basically they're kind of I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm saying it's like Superman and Shazam. it's the same guy.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's just you just rename it, but they all have it's the same powers and things. I was just thinking, like, as a writer or creator of the show, you could look back at this and you can see a lot of similarities where maybe the Q powers and concept came from the Metrons.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've definitely got to give it it at least factored into it on someone's mind.
Right.
Because if nothing, I mean, that's a sci-fi dream
Trope.
of an enemy, right? Of the
Yeah,
bad guys, the all-powerful person.
Right.
Sometimes, and the Q actually definitely goes through this a lot as well, is, to someone with advanced enough science, it's going to look like magic to people who aren't
Right.
that advanced, right? And so that's certainly what the Q looks like to us, and they often say they're just more advanced and we don't understand it yet. That's why it looks like that. So,
like you said, it's a common trope through sci-fi.
Yeah.
I mean, they just had a blockbuster movie about it. Thanos, once he got the Infinity Stones, he basically became a Metron or a Q.
with about the same good intentions, as it were. So I mean,
I don't want to get into this, but I don't think Thanos' idea was terrible.
We could talk about that on another podcast.
Just saying. Anyway, you were talking about you were saying what were you saying before I interrupted you?
Nothing. No, we were done because we were just talking about how the idea of the all-powerful enemy is a trope, and this would help lay that groundwork certainly as well. That's what I think.
So you said you had some notes?
Yeah, a couple. So again, this would not in and of itself make this an essential episode, but just a couple of fun notes. It is in this episode that we first establish a federation. We have not yet had
explain.
We've not yet talked about the Federation. This is episode, I think, 19 of the series. And this is really the first time that we refer to ourselves as the Federation. Previously, we've just been we're the United Earth ship, or the United Planets. We've never said the word Federation in regards to ourselves. Now, Baylock, back in that one episode we did, the Corbinite Maneuver, he talked about being from the First Federation, which I heard another podcast talking about how, like, if we pretend that Federation was in the banks of the Enterprise during that episode, that's like he read the banks and he's like, oh, well, you're from the Federation. Well, I'm from the First Federation.
I'm from the most powerful Federation.
Right.
Federation plus one.
But this is the first time we've heard the word Federation used to describe ourselves, our heroes. By the way, the idea of the Federation of Planets or the United Federation of Planets, that wouldn't actually be said until several episodes later during A Taste of Armageddon, which is a show that we will do on this show as well. That is going to be an essential episode for us as well. Not because of this moment, because Taste of Armageddon has its own stuff, but that's certainly, I think, interesting. For all the crap that I think we're going to give this episode today,
right?
There really is a lot within this episode where I feel like they're starting to figure things out. Like, if you remember, even in our last episode, Balance of Terror, we're talking about the phasers and how the phasers really looks more like what we would know as photon torpedoes. And why don't they have the button up on the bridge? Why do they have to go all the way down, to the phaser?
Why do they get fired from the phaser
so
room?
They fixed both of those.
It's not a
Sulu,
sub.
right? Like, Sulu's up on the bridge firing the phasers, and the phasers actually look like what we now know as phasers.
The blue streaks.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're talking a lot about shields in this one. Or
they don't call them shields.
They call them screens.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah.
It's like, keep those screens up, and it's like,
right.
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah. I think they've really settled into the and they have for several episodes now, but at this point you just kind of get the feeling they have really settled into the color scheme of everything. The uniforms aren't as very colored, or Uhura's not going to show up in a gold outfit one day for some weird reason, and then go back to red. Like, she's just not not what she does. So, and I'm okay with all that stuff, by the way. Like, I'm okay with these little continuity things because I go, it's a TV show. They're figuring it out.
All right.
Like I can forgive that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because when you made the first half of the first season, you knew that how many years has it been? 50?
Yeah.
50 plus?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you knew through, the first handful of shows that you need to go back and fix all the continuity because it was going to become a worldwide iconic phenomenon.
Right. Yeah. We could predict that. We could predict that.
These guys are just trying to paste stuff together and get it out each week.
Right. Right. And I think my favorite explanation of that whole kind of stuff, and I'm sure we'll revisit this when we get into the movies, is enemies we have not met yet in our viewing, Ren, are the Klingons. And, for anyone who's looked at Klingons in the original series versus Klingons in every other series, they look remarkably different. In the original series, they look like humans with sometimes painted skin, sometimes not. Maybe darker skin or whatever.
And Fu Manchus.
Yeah, and Fu Manchus. And later on, they go on and they actually have prosthetics and these head ridges, and they still keep the Fu Manchu, but they just look different. And people were trying to say, like, between the movies and the TV show, like, why do they look different? Oh, what's going on? And Gene Roddenberry is like, well, maybe there was some sort of DNA thing, or maybe there was this, or maybe there was this, or maybe in the original series we were working with a very limited shoestring budget and we didn't have the technology or the money to be able to do it. But by the time we got around to the movie, we actually had that, and this is how they were actually supposed to look the entire time. Maybe that's it too. So I like that episode. I like that answer. We just finally actually got to what we originally wanted to see. So I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing happen throughout all, just these little things. They're figuring out Star Trek and what that is. However, you said it, Ren, and I'm going to say it. To sit back and say this is a bad episode, I don't mean that it's uninteresting. I don't mean that it's boring, because I don't think it's a boring episode.
No, it scared the hell out of me when first time I saw it.
Yeah, now see, you have a different experience with this than I do.
Because I saw it when I was single digits.
Right, I did not.
The Gorn scared me. He scared me.
Right.
I think I had a nightmare.
And you also
guy.
saw it at a time when we did not have computer effects. We didn't have all the graphics and realism.
I did not know how bad it was.
Right. So you have a perspective on this that I will never have. So, for whatever that is, okay, fine. But as far as being a bad episode, I think when you think of the negative connotation of Star Trek in larger society, this episode exemplifies everything about it. Like, you've got the Gorn suit.
That.
Okay, you've got the Gorn suit. Let's face it, the Gorn looks horrendous. As far as
it
the
looks
bad
like
guy.
from a Chinese Godzilla movie.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, it's a rubber suit. You see it folding. His head does. I mean, looks like a Disney thing. Like, the head doesn't move. The head does nothing, and he can't talk to me. The
mouth doesn't move.
Right, the mouth doesn't move. The editing in this movie is atrocious. It is horrible. The continuity from shot to shot to shot is all over the place.
It's all over the place.
Oh my god!
And when they're down on the asteroid, quote unquote, I'm air quoting everybody. See that? When they're down on the asteroid planet, like, they keep coming back to the same 3 spots.
Yeah,
like it's just.
But I mean, so the initial confrontation between the Gorn and Kirk, right? There's a spot where they kind of lock up, like in a hug almost, and like, there's the camera's over Kirk's shoulder, and then the camera's over the Gorn's shoulder, and then the camera's over Kirk's shoulder, and the camera's over the Gorn's shoulder. And if you look at it, every time it's over Kirk's shoulder, the Gorn's head is like nestled down, like into his armpit, into Kirk's armpit. But then when it's over the Gorn's shoulder, his head is like facing up towards the sky. And then it cuts back, and his head's back down underneath into his armpit.
Hey, man.
Until Kirk eventually, by the way, as strong as this Gorn is, and Kirk says later, he says, man, he must be really strong because what I gave him would have killed anyone else. Because I'm that strong. I am He-Man. I would have killed a normal man.
I think he was talking more about how he hit the guy with a medicine ball like boulder from 50 feet up in the chest. Because he didn't say that till after that.
Killed a normal man.
I don't think he was talking about the old classic Star Trek, or I should say TOS, where they interlock their fingers and do like the double punch,
the
like
double axle punch. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
or where he boxed his ears. He comes in and
like
boxes his ears.
Yeah, like he hits him like a shark or something, so he gets away.
Right.
Yeah.
So
but
but I mean, you've got that. There's this one cut. If go back and watch the opening of this show, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It opens in the transporter room. There's Kirk, Spock, and Bones.
Oh yeah,
and they're talking about whether or not they're going to go down to Eton, and apparently the Commodore, whoever they're going to go see, is real famous for all his hospitality. Right. And he's got this big spread of food, and
everyone's excited to go. Kirk and McCoy are really excited to get down there.
Right. And Spock's like, I don't know, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And he turns over and he looks at Bones and he says, "Doctor, you are an essentialist." And
I don't know what that means.
Or essentialist, because McCoy just wanted food. He wanted to experience all that, whatever. And McCoy, like, taking pride in that, goes, "You bet your sweet bippy I am," or whatever it is he said. Then there's
pointed ears.
Yeah, you bet your pointed ears I am. That's right. And there's this insert, this cut of Captain Kirk, and I'm going to try to explain this for our audio audience because this is an audio podcast, not a video podcast, Red. But Kirk does this. It's this weird insert, and the timing is all off, where he kind of gives this like half chuckle, doesn't actually make a sound. It's just his face kind of goes, like he just opens his mouth. He's like, but there's it's just horrible. It's horrible editing.
It's bad. They're trying to show the reaction of Kirk finding what Bones said just funny about, damn right I'm an essentialist, you pointy-eared bastard.
Right. He's like,
and shows the Kirk, and
but there's no sound. And
it's almost like Captain Kirk present, like that. Like, that was sort of the look he gave. Yeah. Hey, who's in the room? I am. Like that was it. Yeah, it was bad.
Right. I mean, the effects in this episode are horrible. The red shirt he literally turns entirely red and then just disappears. Kirk has a disappearing moment where he's there. Everybody on the bridge freezes, and then he's not there, and then everybody unfreezes. There's also this one spot where like Kirk is running to go get like some sort of ammunition thing, and
he's getting the grenade launcher.
Right, like a bomb supposedly goes off, and it's the idea is it's supposed to have thrown him off his stride. Right. But the bomb was obviously added in later, like in post, the effect of it. And so what you see is Captain Kirk like out there running around like he's drunk.
Oh yeah,
he just and he does this kind of, he sort of falls over. And it's just bad and horrible acting, and this is where we get the Captain Kirk cadence of just 3 words at a time for where we're gonna go.
I thought
to watch this whole episode.
But when they first beam down to the surface, and the whole place is destroyed. They're expecting this big fanfare and the Commodore and all this stuff, and he looks around and he pulls off his communicator and opens it up, and Sue's like, "Yes, Captain," and he's like, "The outpost has been destroyed," and that's it.
Right.
And obliterated.
Yeah.
Like it's like wiped off the face of the map, and that's all he says, and then he closes it again.
Right.
Like, it's like, don't you want to be like, okay, so what do you want me to do now, Captain? But
we're going to red alert. Are we?
Yeah,
you want us to beam you back like right now? Are we?
No, that. I remember. I'm sorry. He did say it. He goes like red alert. Sulu, why? What's wrong? The outpost has been destroyed. Click.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Should we beam you? I mean that because you're right. You're 100% right. You were talking earlier about the Gorn. Kirk like lands this or he throws this medicine-sized ball rock at him.
Yeah.
Okay. Given the angle, because Kurt was kind of on an elevated place throwing it down, I can see how with enough strength that would get there. Then the Goron saunters over real slow and picks up this boulder that, as you said, is like the size of Utah, and picks it up and pulls it up over his head, and then he goes to throw it, and it just aims this perfect, threw it like it was nothing, because really it was nothing. And I'm sitting there going, for as much as he could pick this up, he still struggled with it a little bit. You know what I mean? And the way he's holding it over his head, the way his hands are, like, there's no way he's getting that much leverage to throw it.
Yeah,
with what
the leverage was off.
He's just not going to get it. But, the way it
even
just,
if that boulder was made of chicken wire and paper mache,
exactly,
he wouldn't have got it up to where Kirk was.
No, there's no way.
Like probably less than 1% of the people alive could have got it up to where Kirk was.
Right.
And then put a rubber suit on.
Right.
In the desert.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, the asteroid.
Right.
And what was the
asteroid.
Bamboo? Like the bamboo. Yeah. I know you needed it for the cannon, but it just it's the only place you ever saw the whole entire asteroid was like this. Everything, it's just rocks and scrub brush. That's all it is, the whole entire thing. And then there's just one spot where bamboo and green. I'm talking green.
Yeah.
Like palm fronds are glowing out.
Right.
But that's the only green in the whole entire thing.
What it looks like on screen is exactly what they did. They went out to the Vasquez Rocks, which, by the way, this is a place that Star Trek will return to again and again and again, and not just through the original series. They'll return to it for all their series to film things in this place. And it looks like they went out, there's all these rocks, and we're going to put this bamboo thing here, and we're going to sprinkle this yellow dirt over here, we'll sprinkle this white stuff over here, and it's supposed to be natural mineral deposits. And no, it looks like the crew came in and just said, hey, let's put this here. Like, that's exactly what it is. But I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned the cannon, because first of all, the cannon was hollow. Kirk picks it up, and we see all the way through the hollow.
This bothered me when I was 8.
Then I will let you explain what I'm getting ready to say.
Okay, this bothered me again. I can't believe I forgot to write it down to talk about it. I guess I've been so traumatized. Okay, so in the middle of this outcropping of rocks, there just happens to be some 8-foot-tall bamboo and some perfectly green fern leaves. The first time he rolls by it, Kirk, we're talking about, he picks up the piece of bamboo, whacks it on the ground. Oh, that's no good. That's not sturdy enough. And then, some things happen. And now he's figured out, like I said in the recap, that he can use gunpowder and use diamonds as a projectile. But he needs a barrel, basically. And hidden, he checks a couple of pipes, and then, and these bamboo are probably from 2 to 4 feet long and probably 2 inches in diameter. But back tucked away out of frame, or not out of frame, but you can't see, is this perfect 3-foot piece of bamboo that the diameter is about 6 inches across. So basically it's like a blunderbuss, and you see him looking through it where it's hollow. Right. Well, as you would when you need, I know you need the sulfur, you need the coal, you need the diamonds, but the white stuff.
The potassium nitrate. Basically, it's saltpeter.
Yeah. Okay, so potassium nitrate. So, you would think that when you got to get, sort of mix this up to make it right, to carry it all, to put it together, he just shoves it down the tube, like in this bamboo cannon he's found. Right. And it never falls out the bottom. Right. And it always, even when I saw this when I was 8, 9 years old, I'm like, I don't get, why isn't, it's a straw. It's a huge straw. You put something in the top, it's going to fall out the bottom.
But then you also have, once you get past that, when he actually creates this cannon and he throws all the stuff back in there, he doesn't have anything lodged into the butt end of it to give propulsion to go out the other way.
Because if you're going to make the jump where obviously there's something they're stopping it.
Something,
then,
supposedly. Yeah. But, and this is one of those nitpicky things, Ren, that Trekkies love to go off and try to explain it away.
No gravity in space.
Right. Or that's when they go up to the autograph table and Bill Shatner's sitting there and say, all right, now listen, when you were fighting the Gorn, I noticed you didn't, how did that work for you, man? And Bill Shatner's like, dude, I was high when we made that whole episode. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't watch those episodes.
It's a TV show, bro.
Yeah, it's a TV show, bro. Get a life. And he made an entire documentary just based off of stuff like that. So
yeah, if you ever want, I think one of my favorite movies, and it's extremely underrated unless you're a sci-fi fan, is Galaxy Quest.
Sure. The best Star Trek movie ever made.
But there is that moment where, the crew is older now and they're like at a Comic-Con or a comic book show and they're sitting at the table and they're signing and there's people coming up and they're getting those questions where it's like, hey man, in the arena, can you tell me how a hollow piece of bamboo, held all your ingredients for your cannon? And then after that, like what did you like? But that, like I said, when I was, 8, 9 years old, the first time I saw that on TV in syndication,
it still bothered you then.
It bothered me. It bothered me then. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But you just kind of let it go by. But every time you see the episode, it's like, nope, still no explanation. Mm-hmm. Still no. I mean, and they do some terrible job of explaining things.
Mm-hmm.
Like for Star Trek. The captain's log becomes sort of like the inner narration or catching the, audience up. Instead of like having to write conversation in, they just have them walking and they just have Kirk talking over captain's log, stardate, whatever, and just recaps what happens and what I'm thinking.
Right. And then, we're back from commercial break. Let me give you the previously on this episode.
Yeah. So, it was just, you could have, I don't know. But yeah,
and then there's little things
episode, that's what bothers me the most, obviously.
And then there's other little pieces of exposition where he's sitting there, he's going, diamonds, possibly the hardest known substance in the universe. Diamonds. I'm like, oh well, thanks for reminding us that diamonds are the hardest known code. Now we can later use that as a projectile, Chief. I appreciate you reminding us of that.
It was poorly written. It was poorly shot.
It was poorly acted.
But that Gorn.
Maybe it wasn't so poorly done in the 60s. This episode does not hold up to the test of time. It just doesn't. It's still an iconic episode, though. And that's the thing we can't forget. Absolutely because of the Gorn.
He was scary, an iconic look, a onesie, a turtleneck, sleeveless onesie with leather gauntlets, by the way.
There you go. Leather gauntlets.
Forget about his leather gauntlets he had on. His eyes were his like bee eyes.
His like fly, like the fly eyes that have like multi things.
Lenses in it. Yeah. It was, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
But the head didn't move.
No. Well, neither did Michael Keaton's Batman. So hey, what are you gonna do?
It's very true. And it didn't have nipples.
And neither did the Gorn that we could tell.
So all of that said, Ren, still through the middle of all of that, I think there's some really good lessons that we can pull out of this episode. Like it's still
they kind of beat you over the head with them.
They kind of do. It's still an episode of Star Trek. Before I get there, though, I did want to say this kind of to put a cap on the conversation we're having about the canon. I looked up what it actually takes to make gunpowder because I didn't know. I didn't study that in my high school chemistry class. Apparently they do in the future.
What, they don't teach teenagers how to make gunpowder? What? And next week,
recall your
how
basic
to make dynamite.
Spock says he's like, recall your basic chemistry there, Bones. And I'm sitting here going, this is a society and a culture that is post-projectile weaponry. It's energy-based weaponry.
Right.
Why are they learning gunpowder? How to mix gunpowder? Regardless, if you can get past that, I actually learned what you had to do. There's apparently, it's a lot more of a refined technique than just what Kirk did of throwing these things together and kind of mashing the charcoal up into bits and pieces. Like, you actually got to make this a powder. Like, you got to work with it and really grind it in. And then, oh, by the way, you've got to get them in just the right proportions. Like, you've got to.
Didn't you see him like proportioning it out on the rock with his hand? And
yeah, sure, because that's scientifically accurate.
Hey man, when you got a 7-foot lizard on your tail with an onyx spike coming at you,
so
you gotta make do, man.
Last bit, did you know that the Buthmisters, the Mythbusters, actually put this cannon to the test?
Oh, really?
It was one of their things to see is it feasible? Could this have actually happened? And you want to know how it ended up? Can I spoil the whole thing for you?
Oh, please do.
Oh, it was busted.
Did it explode?
It was implausible. You cannot make a cannon like this. It just doesn't work. You can't do it.
Did they have the right materials at least?
I don't know. I didn't watch the episode. I'm just telling. I just saw this as a little note.
No, not Mythbusters.
Oh,
Kurt.
Oh yes, yes, he did. Yeah, for anyone out there who wants to know, it's potassium nitrate, which is saltpeter. It's not table salt. Don't try to use that.
Don't try to do it. Don't try to make it anyway.
You can buy it. You can buy it from any gardening shop, and then it's sulfur, which you can also buy from any gardening shop, and then it's charcoal.
But in the right proportion.
And it's 75% salt. I'll tell everybody, it's 75% saltpeter, it's 15% charcoal, and it's 10% sulfur. And you get them ground up into a fine dust. You got to ground them up into a fine dust. You kind of got to put a little bit of water in them so that you don't, spark it, make the explosion while you're trying to,
so you don't blow your hands off.
Because it will react and go kaboom. And then you got to get it packed in real nice and tight, which we saw actually Kirk jamming it in and trying to pack it in. But it's we've been making gunpowder as a civilization for 1,200 years at this point, maybe more. Actually, maybe about 1,600 years. So
a million.
It's not that hard to make. But it still requires a little more chemistry than let me put a handful here and a handful here and an armful. Anyway.
Well, he definitely wasn't making the guns of Navarone. And it did blow to bits.
It did. It's
even when he tried to tie the rope around it to keep the barrel itself together. Yeah, it still and it blew him back off his feet as well.
Yeah,
it was
did more damage to that Gorn, didn't it?
What?
It did more damage to that Gorn though, didn't it?
Barely. Because the shot, it has like one little, and that's really terrible fake blood. It had like a little piece of diamond sticking out of his shoulder with the blood running back.
Right.
And that was about it.
By the way, you well, I don't know about you. I did not notice it until my third viewing this particular time. I've seen this episode many times before. I've never noticed a diamond in blood in the Gorn before until now.
You think it was added? You think George Lucas got a hold of this?
Well, they did go back and remaster all of these in 2006, so it is possible. However, I don't think so. I think I just never noticed it because it's so small. It's such a It's such a small little thing.
Yeah. They didn't take the time to shred the Gorn's suit up in the chest area with big piece of diamond sticking out, or one sticking out of his forehead. It was just on the shoulder. But like we said, shoestring budget at the time, man.
Yep. Did what they had to do. They made 2 of those Gorn suits. That's it.
Yeah. The crew was all hot and angry by that time of the shoot anyway.
So apparently the suit, they had slits cut in the knuckles to where all the guy had to do who was wearing the suit was just hold his arm downward and then open up the slits, and sweat would just drain out of the slits.
From where?
From his
from
body.
His armpit?
Yeah, just as he was.
You figured they had him down at the bottom by his ankles, what?
They maybe have some there too, but they had him in his hands as well to do that, and he couldn't take the costume off. He could remove the head, but he couldn't take the rest of the costume off. It'd halt production for too long, so they just kind of give him a ladder to lean against. Apparently,
just lean against this rock.
Yeah.
That would be great to see the Gorn with its head on, sort of underneath one of these big beach umbrellas.
Sipping
in
a
like
Mai
a
Tai.
director's. No, but just in a director's chair, like you couldn't drink, so like just like looking at the script or something. That'd be great. Like head down, like looking at the script under this, big umbrella with the. Did you say it was Red River Rock Canyon?
Vasquez Rocks.
Is that the one that they? They said they went in the Big Bang Theory when they were going to Comic-Con.
Yes,
they stopped there to do a photo shoot.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, the Gorn, the fully suited Gorn, did appear in the Big Bang Theory.
I don't remember. Oh, was it a dream? It was a dream.
It was an episode. So
it was a dream episode.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we tore it to shreds. But like you said, man, you got to talk about the Gorn. He is iconic bad guy, definitely of the TOS, and has held up throughout the years through pop culture as well. Like we just said, he just made an appearance in the Big Bang Theory, for God's sakes. Anything else you want to talk about?
I think I do want to talk about the Star Trek nature of the episode, because something that stood out to me as I was going back and watching this is the only thing I remember about the arena is the Gorn. It's the fight with the Gorn. However, we don't actually ever see a Gorn until a little over halfway through this episode. Yeah. Like it's quite a bit of an episode without the Gorn. And then there's the big lesson at the end. And this is very much still a Star Trek type episode, as I was saying. So, it's far less philosophical, I think, than some of their others. It's far less deep. As you mentioned, it's a little bonk over the head.
Yeah, very heavy-handed with the message, this one.
Right. But I did, Spock brought it up to Kirk earlier in the episode that, hey, maybe the Gorn was just trying to defend himself. And Spock or Kirk was so incensed because he gets down to Cestus 3 and everything's completely obliterated and he's pissed. And he's so incensed and he's out for blood and he's out for vengeance. And that was Kirk all the way through this fight until that very end where he kind of had the change of heart of going, well, maybe you really thought you were just trying to defend yourself. Maybe, it's he finally kind of came back to the futuristic Kirk, the futuristic person that Gene Roddenberry wants everybody to become, right?
Right. Drops his bloodlust.
Right. And that idea that all-out vengeance is not a path to peace, which I'm trying to teach my 6-year-old right now. Like, son, you don't go to get to hit people because they pissed you off. Sorry.
But if you get them all, it is path to peace, right?
Yes, but if you're going to get them good. Make sure they don't get you back. No, I don't tell them.
Get them all. Ender's Game.
But the to me, I think the biggest thing is what the Metrons do in this episode, and how completely messed up this is.
Oh yeah, like how they're supposed to be so civilized, and this is their This is their way of dealing with this problem.
Right now,
one-on-one battle to the death.
Right now, throughout history, it is a common thing you have two armies come together. The heads of the armies come together and say, "Hey, instead of us going to actual war with our entire armies and each of us losing so many people, you pick out your best guy. I'll pick out my best guy. We'll let those two guys fight." And whoever wins the whole thing. And the other people go home. Like that is an established practice of war throughout history. That's kind of what they were doing here. But it's still messed up because what they said was not, we're going to let you two fight it out and whoever wins kind of wins this conflict and you guys can move on your way. No. It's we'll let you guys fight it out to the death and the winner gets to go on their merry little way. The loser and their entire ship and all their friends on their ship, they're just going to get obliterated. And this is, quote unquote, in the name of peace. It's messed up. It's just messed up. This group that thinks they're civilized. They said this line. McCoy says at one point, "We appeal to you in the name of civilization. Put a stop to this." And their words back to him were, "Your violent intent and actions demonstrate that you are not civilized." Excuse me, Mr. Metron. You're the one who put these people in this situation and gave them the ability to kill each other. Your violent, what's that word?
tendencies, nature,
facilitation. Like they
yeah.
facilitated the violence here. Like, and by the way, we're going to put weapons there that you can destroy each other with. It just I don't know.
But at close range, and they have to be brutal. Like those are brutal weapons, like clubs, sticks, spikes, things like that. And if you really think about it, like it would just let it be. What the Metron's decision, it would have been the exact same outcome. One ship would have destroyed the other.
Right.
Like everybody would have died on one side. But you just had to jump in and be like, maybe, because Kirk did say at the end, like, we won't be your entertainment anymore when he refuses to kill the Gorn. Maybe they place bets on it. Maybe it is, sort of a gladiatorial, Coliseum type of thing, or fast forward it to the Hunger Games. Yeah, the arena. But they didn't like. That's sort of another part of the show. Like it was on both sides of the fence on that thing. Mm-hmm. It's like the Metrons who were playing, and at the end they're like, sort of this all-knowing being, like, maybe in a couple thousand years, us and the humans will hang out, and as sort of this. Yeah,
I don't want to hang out with those guys. I'll be honest. It's almost
but they're trying to like spin them off as like this grandfatherly, old, wise, like hey, keep working at it, son, and one day you could be me.
Right.
But then at the same time, it's like with the name, the arena, and obviously, it has very heavy overtones of gladiatorial matches or, movies that have been come out recently, like Hunger Games or video games, which I've alluded to, PUBG and Fortnite. It's entertainment. Like you're watching this for entertainment. So they never sort of really put the Metrons, which kind of makes it a bad episode again, because it's like lazy writing. It was like the show was written by two different people.
Yeah.
And they matched it. Like, you write the first half of the show, I'll write the second half of the show.
Yeah. Yes, it was. I do have a question for you, though, kind of coming out of that whole line that they said.
Yeah.
Your violent intent and actions demonstrate that you are not civilized. Ren, right. I like to think that we're a pretty civilized society. We're not perfect. We have our issues, but I mean, compared to history,
compared to ourselves,
in life, we are a fairly civilized society. But are we? Our own violent intent and and actions, do they demonstrate that maybe we really are not as civilized as we might think we are?
Well, talking about tropes, I mean, we talked about the all-powerful enemy in sci-fi being a trope. I mean, the self-destruction of humanity is a trope that's been through many, many, many books, movies, any genre of sci-fi fantasy, even post-apocalyptic. Like, these are all that's a mainstay is humans left to their own devices are going to destroy themselves eventually.
Right.
So, like it was the first question in my mouth. Like, I think we're civilized. Like, compared to who? Compared to people 200 years ago who only lived to be like 35 years old at an old age. It's like it's like, who are you comparing it to? Where the birth rate was like 1 in 6, or the survival rate was like 1 in 6. So. It's funny. I was watching 60 Minutes tonight, and they were talking about the Hubble telescope, and they just have the Hubble telescope like just stare. Basically, they just position it, but to have it stare in this, from the naked eye, it's just black space, like totally black space, and it just sits there for a couple of days, sometimes up to a week, and just sits there and stares and stares at it and stares at it and stares at it. And then when they look through the Hubble telescope, eventually, you see all these, not just stars, but actual galaxies. Like, from the Hubble telescope, they can see galaxies if you're patient and sit there long enough. So now, I guess they're saying that there's more galaxies than there are grains of sand on the beach, and every beach in the world. take every beach in the whole entire Earth,
Mm-hmm.
take every grain of sand, and there's more galaxies, not solar systems,
Right.
galaxies. So if I don't want to turn this into like, are we alone? If you think logically and you're not a religious zealot, which there's nothing wrong with it, as long as you're not mean to people or try to hurt people, you can be. But I think if you really take all the facts that are there available to you, that we are not alone. So where does our civilization rank against the just about by odds at least one more that's out there?
Right.
One planet that happens to be next to a star that's so far away where it doesn't burn the surface but not too close, or I got that backwards, not too far away where everything drops to like 80 below at night. You can't think there's just one more planet like that out there.
Right.
We don't even know if there's another planet out there in our galaxy, let alone these trillions upon trillions of galaxies that we're seeing. So,
I mean, and McCoy said that, I think, in the
where
Balance
are
of
we?
Terror.
I don't know.
I mean, he said that in the Balance of Terror episode, right? He kind of broke down he's like, of all the solar systems and all the planets and all the galaxies and all the whatever, and there's, calculations tell us that there should be life on 4 million planets out there, but there's only one you. He was making the it was that speech.
Right.
I think I heard Bill Nye the Science Guy, he estimated at one time that there could be Earth-like civilizations in 41 planets. He came down to the number 41. Like in a mathematical probability of
what he knew of the universe.
Of what he knew of the universe, right? And, the probability of that, and then, evolution moving to where it needs to go to in order to form advanced life like we have today here on Earth. Not just, hey, there's a microorganism out there, but actual, some planet could have little green men running around out there, I guess, or their own Gorn. So,
But
yeah.
I don't know how they've survived moving that slow, though.
Or not just survive, but become spacefaring to the point that they can move, because you're getting a spacefaring war. You've got to be agile. You've got to,
you got to push buttons fast.
You do, and accurately. And you ever try to not fat finger a thing with a big reptilian finger glove on your hand? It's impossible.
Dude, I fat finger PUBG on my phone all the time.
And you just have regular little skinny human fingers.
That's right, I do.
So,
of course, but the phone is made for little skinny human fingers.
Well, there it is.
So, you imagine the size of a phone, of a cellular phone, a smartphone for a Gorn.
For a Gorn, so that he doesn't, his keyboard.
It'd be like a cooking sheet, like a cookie sheet.
Exactly. That is.
Yeah.
So, let me flip the script on this whole thing with the Metrons for you real quick.
Okay.
So I did a little bit of research, as I do for a lot of these episodes, just to find out things that maybe I didn't even know before. In the original script, in the final conversation between Kirk and the Metrons, they actually would tell him that their original plan was, even though they said that they would obliterate the loser, they were going to actually obliterate the winner, because that meant that person had to be the more violent of the two if they were the one to win. And that's the one that would cause the bigger threat. So they were actually going to kind of pull the old switcheroony on them, was the original plan, and kill the, so they all thought that they were getting ready to demolish the Gorn, and they didn't. So, but outside of that, yeah, I mean,
plus there's too many holes in that.
Yeah, there is. Well, there's a reason they took it out.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, man, that's this episode. It's,
it's the Gorn.
Yeah, it's an iconic episode. If you've never seen it before, if you're trying to get into Star Trek or you want to know what Star Trek's about, it's an episode you should watch.
Because the Gorn's going to come up in conversation.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we never see the Gorn again moving forward in the timeline.
Or the Metrons.
Well, but we're not going to hear from them for a couple thousand years. Or that guy from
the first episode.
Oh, the
Balak.
Yeah, the Balak. Yeah, I know.
No, not him, but the navigator.
The guy we left?
Yeah,
dude,
Riley,
No, dude, I told you he became dinner for Balak that night.
Yeah, I don't.
That's what happened. In my head, that's what happened.
How Balak's going to overpower Riley? I mean,
did you see what Balak did by himself to
his ship?
The ship?
He didn't do it.
He had something to do with that. Anyway. That's 3 episodes ago, man.
I guess he could poison him. But I know, but there seems to be a lot of this setup for return for characters and things, and it never happens.
Well, keep in mind, this is how they did TV back then. You know, in the era that we're recording this podcast, episodic TV is very serialized. What you do one week does have consequences the next week. We don't start getting that in Star Trek really until about halfway through the Next Generation run.
Yeah,
because outside of that, it's very much Alien of the Week. Yeah. And it's got to be a standalone episode, and one is not going to impact the other moving forward very much at all, because these things have to go to syndication, right? People, pop in and out of the episodes. They don't watch them in order. So, that's why they do it. And I mean, as you pointed out, the number of galaxies and crap out there. Well, there's so many of these aliens out there. There's no way we're going to meet them all. So, we'll meet this one.
Yeah, but even like,
there's other starships that go back and meet them, right? We're just following this one.
Yeah, but no Gorn showed up in Next Generation.
Nope. Nope. A Gorn did show up in Enterprise, but Enterprise was set before TOS. So, once again, we never move forward. Now, there is one thing in, I want to say it's Deep Space Nine. They do mention the fact that they returned to Cestus 3 and they did reestablish a new colony, which would seem to indicate that the Gorn and the Federation have at least come together and worked out some differences to allow the colony to be re-established, I guess. Us presuming that the Gorn wasn't lying when he said you're moved into our territory, So you presume that there's been some extra contact, but who knows? Who knows? But you're right. We never see the Gorn again. In fact, most of these TOS people we never really see again.
Yeah, you're right. It was only 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. Maybe they had plans to, but the grand scheme, the grand vision was to, but ran out of money, didn't get picked up, or whatever. All right, well, I think that's going to put a bow on this episode.
Yep.
Is that where we're at?
Yep.
All right, you can reach us, or at the podcast at least, a couple of ways. Best ways on Twitter, STTE_podcast. That's at STTE_podcast. Or if you have any thoughts on this episode, or there's an episode that you would like to put your hat in the ring to see if we'll talk about, you can always send us an email. That's pretty simple. It's sttepod@gmail.com. sttepod@gmail.com. That stands for, of course, Star Trek The Essentials, if you have problems remembering it. And Brent, where can the good people find you on the internet?
You guys can find me across all the social medias at Brent Allen Live. I will respond to anything you guys shoot out to me, so I'd love to talk to you. Hit me up at Brent Allen Live, all the social medias.
And for me personally, the best way is on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll be coming. Do you know off the top of your head? Because I'm a terrible host and I forgot to look what the next one is.
Tomorrow is yesterday.
As we end every episode with the Starfleet motto, Ex Asteris Scientia, from the stars, knowledge. Talk to you next time.